Thanks everybody for your patience as we were getting everything set up here. We are streaming live through YouTube. I'm calling in from Puerto Rico, and I think Betty's calling in from tomorrow morning from New Zealand. So yeah, thanks everybody for coming. This is kind of the first time we've experimented with YouTube, so we've got a kind of a full agenda to talk through today. I'm just going to get Betty's thoughts on a bunch of different things going on right now, and then answer as many questions as we can. So feel free to post questions in the YouTube chat. Whatever's on your mind, we're happy to talk through it. Betty, do you want to give a quick introduction and then go ahead and get started?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, it's Bette here, co-founder of Acala. Yeah, I've been building out in the Polkadot ecosystem for the last 2.5 years. Still feels like day one. A lot of stuff to be built. So hopefully we can share a little bit more updates as we go forward with everybody. So yeah, so very first streaming event, I guess.
Yep. Awesome. And this is Dan Reecer. I'm leading our growth team. I've been with Acala for 1 year and 5 days. So it's definitely been a great experience the first year here, going through all the Karura launch and the Acala launch that we're in right now. And yeah, today we're really coming together to talk through, I guess, just starting out with where Acala is coming from, where we've been, and then getting into some of the more detailed things that I think people are interested in hearing about. So Betty, why don't you maybe just kind of paint the picture of kind of what Acala was built for, where we're headed, and what people can expect going forward.
Yeah, so I think it's easy for folks who looking at Polkadot or looking at Acala and then make direct comparison with other stuff that's been built in the ecosystem. And also for what Polkadot brings to the world is a paradigm shift in how to build and what the decentralized web may look like. But actually, it's done it in a very different way. So this is almost like probably 7, 8 years ago, or 6, 7, 8 years ago, when Ethereum first come out. Folks in the Bitcoin community, they're still writing scripts. They wouldn't actually, understand what Ethereum actually brought to the world. It took quite a while for people to shift to a completely new tech stack, and then really understand the value of a ledger plus a computer, which is EVM. And then now, after it has bootstrapped itself, and then also a whole bunch of developer ecosystem, now it becomes like the industry standard where everybody copies exactly the same technical model as well as a commercial model, and then make a really good life out of it. This is like what we've seen in the last, I think, 12 to 24 months, where the EVM sort of generic layer ones have been going. It's been going really well, and then got a lot of attention. And then it's very easy to stuck in the past and think that is all we're gonna have. This is the same when Bitcoin first came out. People thought, the whole world only need one blockchain, and that is Bitcoin. And then see where we are at now. And then once Ethereum comes out, folks thought that's the end of it, right? So look at where we are now, and we're only at the very, very probably beginning of where Polkadot is leading everybody. So in the Polkadot ecosystem, it's a completely different dimension when you look at things that are being built. Instead of being only building single apps within a chain, Polkadot is actually fostering 3 different type of chains. One is you can still build generic layer ones, EVM layer ones out there. Good example is like Moonbeam. And they can follow the trend and do whatever other people are doing. So that's really cool. And then another type of chains that can be built is application-specific chain. So this is Acala, this is HydroDex, this is Interlay, Bitcoin bridges. These are all the other chains are building is around this application-specific chain idea. And this could also be other chains that are being built for sort of different purposes, like NFT chains, metaverse chains, and things like that. And the composability, and then you can think about them more like nations of the United Nations. And then with regard to application-specific chain, I think we are at a very, very early beginning of that trend, because Acala just launched, and then there are three or four other chains being launched at the same time that are application-specific. So remember, 7 years ago when the first step being launched on Ethereum, that's basically where we were at. So still very early. And then as one of the earliest application-specific chain for Acala, then we have a mission, right? Our mission is actually trying to help build this DOT-based or Polkadot-based economy, and building the infrastructure so that folks come at the same time as us or later than us. They can actually use this infrastructure, continue to grow the economy, and also the internet of blockchains per se. And to be more specific, Acala is focused on building financial infrastructure. So this idea of decentralized monetary reserve, if you like, for the Web3. And then what that essentially means is basically DOT and also the native parachains. They can actually, without price exposure, they can still participate in many of the activities on chain, and also without losing their holdings of the DOT. So through this Acala dollar mechanism to collateralize the reserve assets, so basically treating DOT as a reserve asset, and then be able to build out this medium of exchange native cross-chain within the Polkadot ecosystem. And that is the foundation of everything else, right? Obviously, once this is being built, all the other applications, then we can actually integrate and start using this medium of exchange for payments, lending, borrowing, non-financial instruments that flow across multiple different blockchains on Polkadot, as well as the dApps within Polkadot. So you can see this is like a 3D sort of universe that we collectively are building. And we are very, very piece at the very bottom of that universe. So that's the whole point of us being here early, is to set up those infrastructures so folks don't need to repeat building those infrastructures on their chain, and can just leverage Acala parachain's instrument and start building out their products and services. And this ecosystem needs to kind of to grow together, and then be able to leverage each other's products and services to help grow the entire sort of DOT economy, if you like, as we are using more and more DOT in the economy, and increase its velocity and its active sort of participation in the economy, then the entire DOT ecosystem will be able to carve out a new universe, if you like, as we go. So those are just I guess a very little told sort of story, or the stuff that we've been constantly thinking from day one when we first actually come out to build Acala. As a stablecoin, as a decentralized monetary reserve, and also a set of the instruments or infrastructure to help the ecosystem to grow.
That's something that I didn't really fully understand before starting at Acala, is that the original idea, it wasn't that we wanted to build this whole DeFi ecosystem. It was the need, first and foremost, for a decentralized stablecoin to serve the entire Polkadot ecosystem, and then all these other products, all these other dApps, and then this EVM environment were all kind of created to support and grow that stablecoin. So could you maybe talk about like how you guys thought through that decision, and what made you think that the aUSD stablecoin was kind of the most critical component to build around? And then you also talked about how, like, in 7 years ago is kind of where in Ethereum is kind of where we are now. So I guess if you were to go forward like 5 years or 7 years, like how do you see this kind of panning out? And how does that kind of relate to Acala and the stablecoin and what we're building?
I mean, if you think about if DOT is this token for the Web3, right? Basically, the internet of all the blockchains, then it is almost like the reserve token, or the digital gold, if you like, in our world, in the Web3 world. And then in that sense, you probably don't want to use your digital gold to buy coffee or do any other activities within the economy. So then the way to sort of reduce the price exposure of volatility, as well as to have a way for medium of exchange, and also without losing your DOT, right? Because there are many stablecoin out there that you could use, but all of those you have to kind of trade off. You have to trade your DOT off to actually get those stablecoin to access to the stuff that you need. And then through what we've trying to build is you can do both. So you can obtain this medium of exchange, but you can keep hold of your DOT exposure and probably multiply your DOT exposure if you really want to. And then through this mechanism, really at the very bottom of the financial, it's almost like a reserve bank, right? When you actually build out an economy, but a more safer one, because most banks out there are fractional reserve, where we are a full reserve that use over collateralization mechanism to achieve that. So yeah, and then while that's been said, we are here not only just serving just DOT in particular, but also the DOT ecosystem, because you will foresee there will be many parachains that are connected to the DOT ecosystem. And then those parachain assets are potentially also reserve assets, can actually also go through the same system and then be able to generate medium of exchange and then be able to facilitate whatever they do in their own sort of chains, their own economy, and then that sort of help each other to grow the ecosystem together. So yeah, so that's basically where we see things way back when. And then fast forward to today. And it's finally, we've got parachains, long chain, although still gradually, but you can actually see chains popping up. And then gradually the XCM, once it's open, then the chains can actually communicate, send assets across to each other. And then those activities will start to be building on top of each other, right? So bootstrapping chains is certainly more challenging than bootstrapping just one single app, right? Because you're almost like not bootstrapping a dairy store at the corner of the street. You're bootstrapping a country, essentially, when you're bootstrapping a chain. And then in each chain or each country, you have many dApps or many dairy shops on the street. So we are at a sort of different dimension than when folks first built dApps, I guess, back in the Ethereum ecosystem. So those actually come in hand. But the magnitude, once a nation starts to build up, the multiplying effect is going to be exponential, right? Instead of only the dApps within Acala ecosystem using the Acala dollar or the instruments that we built, it will be many other blockchains and all the dApps within their blockchain using Acala's instrument. So those are the stuff that we, I guess, in the next wee while we'll be focusing on is to continue to help build those infrastructure, right? As well as help integrate our products into other parachains and then help build out the ecosystem. Yeah. And then also another interesting thing is we have a lot of on-chain facilities today to help accelerate a lot of things. DOT has a treasury on-chain, and then we are able to do on-chain governance for each of the parachain as well. So there's a lot of potential there for folks who to be able to bootstrap economies in a different way than when it was before as well. So yeah.
Cool. I know we have a lot of people here interested in learning more about kind of the near term. So let's maybe bring it up a little bit to today and maybe where we are. So I guess for people's background, I'm sure anyone watching knows we started launching Acala on around December 18th. After the new year, we began launching the chain. So the token transferability went live. And now we're getting very close to kind of the next phase, which is actually kind of turning DeFi on. So everything going live on Acala week by week. So maybe Bette, just give us an update on where we are this week, what just went live today, and what people can expect this week.
Sure. As you can see, everything we built is centered around the DOT economy. And the whole infrastructure is centered around the lending protocol of stablecoin. And even the DEXs, the liquid staking, they're all supporting liquidity basically for Acala's platform. So it's essential. I know folks on one hand wanted to use all of those instruments from day one, and then on the other hand, you will actually need to bring DOT onto the Acala blockchain for that to be operational, right? You use DOT to trade, you use DOT to borrow the medium of exchange Acala dollar to spend. So those are all have to come from the Polkadot chain. And then as we know, XCM is going to take another wee while to fix all the sort of the issues from the security audits, and also go through a number of upgrades from Kusama all the way to promote to Polkadot. So we kind of like stuck in the middle as an application chain to figure out a way, on one hand, still serve people's desire to start trying and using the protocols on Acala, and on the other hand, this XCM bridge is still being sort of finalized. So in the middle of it, we've talked to Gab and Parity team, and then figure out an interim solution that will be able to bring DOT onto the Acala chain. So that is the DOT bridge that we've built, a non-custodial bridge, a one-way non-custodial bridge to bring the DOT into the Acala ecosystem. And then, of course, the cool thing is this is still non-custodial, so no one is holding your DOT token. It's managed by the parachain Solvent account that are on the Polkadot chain. And then another cool thing is when XCM finally comes, there will be upgrades being done on the Polkadot side and Acala side, but to the user's perspective, it's completely seamless. So your DOT is still your DOT. Nothing actually changes to the DOT that you sent from Polkadot to Acala. So the upgrade will be completely seamless. And to the users, the effect will just be once XCM becomes available, the two-way bridge becomes possible, right? So you can just send your DOT over. And then in the meantime, once the DOT comes to Acala, then you can start kind of like doing a bunch of stuff on the Acala chain. And then there may be direct DOT deposit and withdraw from the Acala chain to exchanges, so that provides a loop for people coming in and out, but was just waiting for all the integrators to be able to set it up for us. But in the meantime, you can bring your DOT onto Acala, and we'll be opening LCDOT and then also DOT pools, as well as the Acala dollar, using LCDOT and DOT as collateral to start minting stablecoin and then start trading in those pools. So very small sort of a range of product sets, but I think it's a good start to already using some of those facilities, and then also facilitate some of those trading needs. So do we want to go into a bit more detail on maybe LCDOT and DOT, which might be the first pair that we are listing? Why it's needed?
Go for it.
Yeah. So for folks who kind of participated in the Crowdloan, right? So you will know, from the Crowdloan, instead of locking your DOT in the Crowdloan itself, you can actually go through the liquid Crowdloan program that Acala set up to release the liquidity. So in the past, if you directly staking or directly go through the Crowdloan program, your DOT is basically locked there for 2 years without any utility, basically. But through the liquid Crowdloan program, now everybody who participates through that program, you receive a LCDOT token, right? And this LCDOT token represents a receipt for your participation. And also you use this receipt to redeem your DOT back in 2 years' time, once the lease finishes, right? So on the surface, this is what it does. But it has magical economic value out of it, because if you lock your DOT in a Crowdloan, you have no access to it. No one else have access to it. And no one else can actually make use of it, right, for the 2 years being. But now with the LCDOT token, you can still keep it in your pocket and forget about it. So the same as what it was before. You're not losing anything. But you can also have a choice. So this gives a whole bunch of people choice of trade it off, right? So some people may want to trade off some part of the LCDOT and then for early liquidity. But of course, the disclaimer here is none of what I say or Dan say here is financial advice or any life advice at all. But with the LCDOT token at hand, this is a fungible liquid token, right? You can certainly gift it to your friends, right? Otherwise, you have to wait 2 years to give your DOT token to your friends. The second thing is you can trade it off. If you want some early DOT liquidity, you can trade it off in the LCDOT and DOT pool. This is why this is the first pool we open, because we receive a lot of requests for trading both sides, right? You might ask, why would one people actually buy LCDOT? Well, one of the reasons is because the nature of LCDOT, right? It takes 2 years to get your DOT. There will be discounted value for that. It's not going to be trading one-to-one, right? There will be discounted. Of course, it's going to be determined by the pool, and it's not going to be one-to-one. So some people, long DOT holders, they might want to just come to the pool and get some discounted DOT, and then in return, they can provide some early liquidity to the LC DOT holder. So if there's a market, there's always folks who can come and participate and serve their own needs. So those are for the traders. And then for the liquidity providers, also interesting, because regardless which side that you provide liquidity to, DOT or LC DOT, eventually it's going to become DOT, right? So if you are really long-term holders, it probably doesn't make too much differences when you're providing those DOT or LC DOT liquidity, because the implemented loss is probably using a different algorithm than if you're trading stablecoin, for example, because at the end of the day, you're receiving DOT. So there are many reasons this pool is at high demand, as we've heard in the last wee while. So that is the first pool that we are releasing in the next day. So I think it's tomorrow. Yeah.
Yeah, somebody asked when that would go live. So the answer is tomorrow. And then somebody else asked when they can stake LC DOT. So
we do have a time, don't we? Do we have a time?
I think so. Yeah, and then the LC DOT liquidity pools will also go live. The bootstrapping will start tomorrow, and then there's a 24-hour period, and then the pool will go live. So anyone who has LC DOT and DOT can become a liquidity provider and then basically earn fees from that pair, as well as liquidity rewards that we'll be releasing.
Yeah, so yeah, we're launching Acala slightly differently. So we've set up a 1 million ACA incentive program, like an overarching program for the next 6 months to help bootstrap the ecosystem. And then those 1 million ACA is then going to be allocated to individual pools when they become available. And also the program will be adjusted on probably a monthly basis. And also as new pools coming out, then we'll probably shift some of the incentive program for new pools. So as for LCDOT and DOT, the bootstrap begins, I think, roughly 2 a.m. UTC. So there will be a block number that will be released soon after this. So you can follow that. And then the bootstrap program opens for 24 hours, just leave enough time for people to put in their LCDOT and DOT. And then as soon as trading begins, after the bootstrap ends, the incentive program then kicks in. So then if you're LPs, then you can stake your LP token and then start earning some of those rewards. Yeah, so, and also at the very early days, there'll be, the DOT, this is the DOT pool, right? And then hopefully we're gonna get LDOT soon, and then, hopefully most of the liquidity will be in a more capital efficient way in LDOT. But yeah, so LCDOT and DOT will be the first. And then we'll open up LC DOT and aUSD. So that's another opportunity for LC DOT holders to kind of like participate in LP and stake their LP tokens. And then the third pool that we're opening will be next week on the 15th of February, ACA and aUSD pool. So this is, will be so ACA token holders will be able to trade with a dollar pool, and also there are also incentive program there that you can stake your LP tokens and start earning incentive rewards there. Yeah.
Yeah, and just to reiterate, Bette mentioned that you would soon be able to mint aUSD with your DOT or your LDOT or LCDOT. This essentially means that if you hold DOT and you don't want to get rid of it, but you still want to unlock some, I guess, liquidity from that, you can collateralize that for aUSD. Some of you may have used this already with KUSD on Karura, but DOT and LCDOT will be collaterals that you can use to mint aUSD, and then you have this free token that you can use for whatever you want. One thing that I also wanted to mention, so as you all can tell, this is a progressive rollout. What we're rolling out this week and next week is by no means like the final version of Acala. We're still kind of in the process, like Bette said, of bootstrapping an entire blockchain nation, essentially. There's a lot of work and time that goes into this process. So as part of that, the team came up with this early adopter program. So anyone who meets the criteria, I think the team can, actually I can post the link in the chat right here, but anyone who meets the criteria for the early adopter program will get an NFT just to basically to kind of thank people for getting in, giving us feedback. We're definitely wanting to hear whatever you have to say, both positive and both as far as constructive feedback about the dApps and the experience and things like that. So the early adopter program will also be going live along with these launches today and tomorrow. So wanted to mention that. And then what Bette just mentioned around the 1 million ACA liquidity program, that has not been released yet. So be on the lookout for that to come out kind of officially from our channels, I guess in the next 12 or so hours, morning US time.
Yeah, so and also like the products and protocols are gradually being rolled out. And even all of those protocols and products, after they've rolled out, there's also a process for us to kind of help bootstrap the entire ecosystem, not just on Acala, but also on other parachains as well. So start integrating Acala dollar and our sort of instruments into other dApps, and also build an ecosystem around it. So it's going to be a long process for us. I think we've already got a list of immediate sort of integrators, but the long goal is to actually be able to push all of these products and then be able to support other parachains like other nations to also build out their economy based on this infrastructure. So yeah, so it's going to be a long game for us to continue to kind of like build and also to bootstrap the whole thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess so we're at the half hour. So one other thing I wanted to just kind of also reiterate is LCDOT. So if you hold LCDOT, just be sure that you're kind of fully aware of what you're doing and how everything works. Bette outlined this very well, but LCDOT, if you sell it, you're going to have to get the LCDOT back eventually if you want to redeem it for your DOT that you contributed to the crowd loan to get that LCDOT. But yeah, on the other hand, there's going to be people who may be looking to pick up LCDOT at a discount because they're willing to hold that for the 2 years to redeem it for DOT after a couple of years. So just be aware, do your reading, do your research about LCDOT. There's plenty to read on our wiki, and we'll be continuing to put out more information about LCDOT over the coming days. So Bette, let's go through and maybe answer some specific questions if we haven't touched on them, or is there anything else that you wanted to cover?
Yeah, let's go for the questions.
Cool. Yeah, there's actually a couple of good questions about the bootstrap period. So somebody asked if they could participate in the LC.dot pool with just DOT. And a similar question, can you explain the risks and benefits of the bootstrap period? So maybe just explaining that for people. Yeah,
sure. So you can basically participate with one or both tokens in the bootstrap program. let me say that. So the reason why you need a Bootstrap program is usually when you need to launch a token, and then you want to launch it in a way that is fair, and then sort of avoid a lot of like front running or whales kind of all of a sudden comes in at the very beginning, or whale bots comes in at the very beginning, grabs a whole bunch of token and then dumps it, soon after other people comes in, right? So we basically, even though our swap is a standard AMM, but we put this Bootstrap program at the beginning so that we can reduce some of those adversarial effects of normal sort of AMM. So what that looks like is once the Bootstrap program is open, then you can actually put in one side of the token. So you can, if you only have LC.dot, you could just put in LC.dot. If you only have dot, then you can just put in dot, right? Or you can put in both. So next I will share what it means if you put in the 3 different options. So if you participate Bootstrap and only put in LC.dot, right? Then imagine when the Bootstrap finishes and when the trading starts, right? You are basically market selling your LC.dot to a portion of dot to make up the LP and then become a liquidity provider. Yeah. So if you only put in one side of the token, so if you put in LC.dot, then you are basically you're basically market selling your LC.dot when the pool opens. So the market price is when the pool opens between LC.dot and dot price. So that's effectively what you're doing. And if you are joining the pool with just dot, right, then you're basically, right, on the other hand, then you're almost like market buying using your dot with LC.dot when the pool opens, right? And if you already have an expectation, right, usually when there's new tokens, they are not on the market yet. This is probably a good instrument for people to participate and settle the price. But if you already have an idea or your perspective on what the 2 tokens are trading, then you could also put in both tokens, right? If you put in both tokens, it's almost like you're setting the price for your own expectation, right? So let's take an example. If you put in, let's say, 1 LC.dot, and then you put in 0.6 or 0.7 dot. So that's basically the exchange rate that you think is reasonable. If you put both in, if the opening price is higher, then you are basically selling your LC.dot for a higher price to make up your LP token pair, and then you become the LP of the pool. So that's probably okay. And then if the opening price is lower, you are essentially buying a little bit more of LC.dot than in a price cheaper than you think to make up the LP token pair, right? Yeah. So if the opening price is higher, then you are selling at a price then higher than you expect, which is good, right? So and then if the price is lower, you are essentially buying some of the LC.dot token at a price lower than you expect. So these are the effects. But of course, if the opening price is exactly the same as what you expect, then nothing changes to the holding of the LC.dot and dot token. So those are the 3 sort of ways that you can participate. So put in LC.dot, essentially market selling your LC.dot, or putting in just dot, basically market buying LC.dot for a portion of the LC.dot to make up the LP pair, right? Or you can put in both if you have both and have an expected value for them. And then so that's that. And then probably another mostly frequently asked question is, should I join as soon as it launches? Probably no, you don't actually need to, because Bootstrap program is exactly to avoid this type of behavior. Is like if I'm faster or if I'm a bot, I'm gonna have advantage over other people. So the Bootstrap program is so that it's fairer, right? Doesn't matter which time you join. It's at the end of the day, the price is the price when the Bootstrap program finishes. So everybody starts from exactly the same sort of point. I guess having said that, then because you don't need to join at the first instance, and then you can kind of observe where the price fluctuates, and then you can join probably before the Bootstrap program finishes, because the price and also the exchange rate is probably going to be stabilized over time, right? Especially for tokens that's already got market price, and then people have an expectation. So you don't need to join when it just opened, but you could find the right time in the middle or towards the end, and then just join it. And of course, each pool there is a minimum liquidity requirement, right? Because you can imagine if we just open the pool, then very shallow liquidity is going to make slippage very huge, and it's not good for traders. What we want is like reasonably good liquidity. Then that means traders are more willing to trade, and when there are more trades, there will be more fees generated, so that LPs, like people who provide liquidity, will be happier. And then they will be willing to stay in the pool for a longer time to provide liquidity, which have this virtuous cycle of more liquidity, better slippage, more traders, more fees, more LPs, and then it kind of like goes around. So so that's roughly the Bootstrap program, and a couple of things that you need to be aware of.
And a similar question, somebody's asking, is there a minimum for DOT or LCDOT LPing?
There's probably only like you need to be above the ED level, so that when you get your LP back, it's not going to screw up. So other than that, there's no minimum. Yeah.
So by ED you mean existential deposit, which on Acala is.
Yeah, so something like just put in at least one LC dot or at least one dot or something like that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Other than that, there's no high bar for people being LP. Yeah.
And then some people are asking about ACA staking.
So the first thing that will come out is the ACA and aUSD listing. So obviously you can then start LPing, so LP staking for that pool and earning some incentive as early as next week, right? And then there will also be ACA staking that coming out in maybe a couple of weeks, depending on the timing of all the things that we are setting up. So for the ACA staking, we're thinking a number of ways, right? So this will probably just be a pre-launch event for the Acala project that are actually providing a slightly longer term of ACA staking. And so we'll have a bit more details once those stuff coming up. Yeah.
Someone else is asking about use cases for the NFTs for Crowdloan and Quest.
No utility being built for the NFT. But of course, once you hold NFT, for folks who's hold NFT before, I guess other projects can look at, if you're NFT holder, that means you've participated in certain events, right? That means maybe you are a particular type of user that they want to airdrop to. And also, as we build out the ecosystem, I'm sure there will also be projects who want to create utility out of the NFTs, because these are DeFi NFTs, right? So you could potentially build out a project and then integrate back into Acala's protocol, the stablecoins, the DEX, and then be able to create more programs for the NFT holder. So these are the areas that, as we build out the ecosystem, hopefully we're going to get developers who then start to be interested in building more utility or facility for folks. So, if you are a developer and you're keen to build out something there, then do keep in, get in touch with us and see what we can actually build together for the holders. Yeah.
Cool. I think that's most of it. We've gone through most of the questions, about 45 minutes. So anything else you want to leave people with, Bette, or we can wrap it up?
I guess this is just the very beginning journey of ACA, and also beginning journey of the Acala sort of ecosystem. And then the way that we've designed the system is such that the longer term the protocol like evolves and grows, the more value is going to accrue through the network, right? There's no inflation for the token, and then there's no sort of this different ways of like spreading the token in different ways. But this ACA token is at the centerpiece of this solvent chain itself. It manages multiple protocols, and then it's also governance token on the chain. And then at the same time, it also has this soft backing of like a treasury holding of foreign assets. So I mean, we don't have inflation, so you don't get those inflationary staking, right? But as we also see what actually evolves in the ecosystem is like folks or dApps start creating different type of interaction with the ACA tokens, as well as other ways to kind of help each other to actually bootstrap the ecosystem. So we are at a very, very early stage of our journey. So come and try those protocols, and also help spread the words. And also there are a lot of building opportunities. We're so early, right? So we like last week also we just tapped by the shoulder of the core team to build another DOT derivatives, right? So there's so many opportunities within the DOT ecosystem. So we continue to kind of like grind at the infrastructure level to build various different type of DOT-based products, so that over time these products are able to actually serve individual users and then also the whole ecosystem. So if you are also kind of believe in this Web3 vision that Polkadot lays out and want to build stuff together, so come and talk to us and see what we can do together.
Cool. So just to summarize, I guess, the whole day. So we've kind of rolled out the one-way bridge today. So keep in mind, this is, as it's called, a one-way bridge or a one-directional bridge from Polkadot to Acala. For people who do kind of take the leap and help kind of experiment with this along with us, there is this early adopter program that we've released where we'll give you guys an NFT if you are one of the people that participates and kind of meets the criteria for this. Bette also mentioned the 1 million the 1 million ACA liquidity incentive program that we're going to be rolling out. This will cover us for the next 6 months or so, and will help incentivize and bootstrap some of these initial pairs. The first 3 pairs that we will launch starting tomorrow, the first one will be LCDOT and DOT, and then we'll roll out LCDOT in our stablecoin aUSD, and then the ACA aUSD pair. Quite a bit of information here, but this has been fun having everybody on YouTube. Thanks for joining us if you spent the time. And then for those of you watching on the recording, appreciate your time as well. We'll definitely do this again. We're going to keep experimenting with different ways of communicating with everybody, keeping everybody updated on the launch and what's going on with Acala. So thanks everybody for your support, and definitely see you guys soon.
Yeah, thanks everybody. Thanks, Dan.
Thank
Nice
you.
chat.